Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. It is me, Dean, and once again, I have Devin with me. How you doing, man?
I am doing good. It's a little busy. Summer is not the slow season for me, and I know it isn't for you. But I'm excited. I've got my hands on some of the digital versions of the black and white set. I've been playtesting some ideas, and I'm super excited to roll those out the next couple weeks. But I
Yeah,
know you and I have been talking about some other stuff as we're, 3 weeks away from Worlds?
yeah, and I don't know. It's just I was looking at the list and I was talking to some of my friends about it, and one thing we noticed, like, obviously, there's a lot of like I guess, professional Pokemon players, and we know a lot of them are like in college or high school, and they don't really have like a lot going on, which is no, like it's fine. Like I get it. People are in different phases of life. But it's like I wonder how it would be like to go on that grind with like you and me who work full time. Like I'm sure you're pulling like 10, 12-hour shifts now. I know I'm doing that with my job. But like how would it be with someone to make worlds that's also in our like same like place of life, you know? I wonder how that's like.
I think I might have something to say towards that.
2025 World Invitee Solomon Surge? What are you doing here?
I figured I'd stop by and give some insight here.
I think you're the right person to ask about that. So, cat's out of the bag. I actually have one of my good friends on the podcast with us this week, Solomon Surge, who is a two-time World Invite recipient, and he actually works full time. This is something me and him talked about when we were at NAIC, and we just figured let's pick his brain on like how it is getting your World Invite, going on that grind, but working a normal like 9 to 5 40-hour a week job.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hey everybody.
So Solomon, I know you were on here before, but why don't you just reintroduce yourself, talk about maybe a little bit of your journey with the 2025 season, what events you went to, and maybe a couple of your top placements of the last season.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Solomon Surge. I am a Metro Detroit, Michigan player. I started playing in 2016. Took some time off around COVID, and then came back once the tag team started phasing out. I got my Worlds invite last year, largely off of a top 16 placement at EUIC. And then I got my second invite back to back this year through a smattering of different day twos. So I guess a little bit about this year's performance. I went to 9 major tournaments, 16 cups and 23 challenges. So that's like 39 locals and then the 9 majors. Of those 9 majors, I got 5 day twos. Included in there, I went to all 3 ICs. I got a top 128 LEIC at 69th place. And then UIC didn't do very good, but I got a 163rd at NAIC, which is the largest event outside of Asia. And then the 2 that got me to the finish line, in addition to those, were the top 64 Brisbane and 9th place at Johannesburg. And then to round it out, the 5th one was Louisville. I got 127th. So, yeah, so that was the season this year. I generally try to keep it about 1 major a month. Keeps things relatively even paced. I think there was one 2-week interval where that one was pretty rushed. And by the end of the second regional, I was kind of toast. But generally, 4 to 6 weeks interlude is pretty comfortable because by the time you get bored, the next one's ready for you.
So. Yeah, so it sounds like you were traveling all over the place. I know we've talked about like, hey, why are you going to do this? You're like, oh no, I'm going to go Australia. Oh no, I'm going to go South Africa. Oh, I'm going to be in London this weekend. So
So
you
the
definitely got
reasoning,
your flights in there.
yes, the reasoning behind that is I am traditionally pretty frugal. Some may say stingy, and also not motivated to travel if I don't need to travel. But at the same time, it's like, I would like to see the world, and this gives me a pretty good excuse to go travel and see the planet. So I kind of look at the schedule when it's announced. If there's any country that piques my interest, I'm like, hey, let's go to that country when there just so happens to be a Pokemon tournament. Which is, it's a bummer because there's so many countries in Asia that I'd like to visit, and they're not a part of our circuit. So
Mhm.
I can't get championship points going to Asia. So that one, I haven't cracked that nut yet. But every other continent outside of Antarctica, they host Pokemon tournaments that I can go compete at. So that was the kind of the checkbox this year was attend all the continents. And I did through technicality because I had a layover in Istanbul in Asia. So I was technically in all 6 continents because of Pokemon. But I did not compete in Asia. Not yet. That's
Yeah.
still on the to-do list. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's without Pokemon, I wouldn't go anywhere. And in fact, before Pokemon, I had not left North America. And now because of Pokemon, I've gone to all of the continents. So,
Nice.
and I highly recommend strategy. Um, the ICs are cracked. Like they are way too good in terms of points and like your championship points per money payout. The ICs are broken. So I learned my lesson. The what is it? The 23-24 season. No, the 20, excuse me, the 22-23 season. I only went to North America and I missed Worlds by like 60 points. And I'm like, man, that's like a EUIC top, was I don't know, 256 or top 500. It's like that would have been not that hard. I didn't even have to day 2, and I would have got my World's invite if I just showed up. So the following year, I went to all 3, which was last season, and I got it. So at that point, it's like, all right, lesson learned. Always go to the ICs because they're just too good. And you go to Brazil, you go to London, like those aren't terrible places to go to. So it's and you get to see really good players at like the highest level of competition.
So Solomon, comparing the two invites that you had, which
Mhm.
one? I know this is a very low question because it's two completely different formats, obviously. Which one was easier, or which one was kind of easier to plan around?
So I would say last year was actually easier. It felt like the format was slower. I was able to kind of just pick a deck and ride it through from start to finish. I started the season last year on Gardevoir, and after 2 abysmal regionals where I went 3-3-3 at Pittsburgh and 2-1-6 at Peoria, I swore off the deck because it's too slow. I'm too slow, and the combination of us is painfully slow. So I'm like, all right, I need to go faster. What's the fastest deck I can pick? And at the time, it was Miraidon, like Pathdon. And so I played that at Toronto and went substantially better. And it was like 5-2-2, losing my winning into day 2 on round 9. And then Iron Hands came out going into LAIC, which was my first IC outside of North America. And Pathdon just worked like 4 path, 4 hand disruption cards, and you just win. And that was my first day 2 since 2017. And humorously enough, my round 9 ID into day 2 was Noah Sawyer, who ended up coming in finals. Like
Oh
he was
Oh,
wow!
second
nice.
place. So yeah, like he hadn't been in a day 2 in a while. He said so. Like he was excited just to get in there, and I hadn't been since 2017. And then my day 2 was like 1-3-2. Like it was not very good, but he went undefeated all the way to finals. So like he just was on a man on a mission. So that was pretty cool for him. But yeah, so like last year, and then at some point, like they came out the future cards, and like I just pivoted from Rhydon Iron Hands to future Iron Hands. But like it's effectively the same deck. It's just instead of going the Miraidons and the Arvens and the Electric Generators. If you whiffed your generators, you had a plan B, which was Baby Miraidon, and then you're still rocking and rolling. And the format was slow enough that you could actually do that effectively. And that deck got me to a top 16, a top 32, and it paid my entire season. So substantially easier than this year, where I had to play like 5 different decks over the course of the season to get my invite. Some considerably different. Like the first deck I actually got points with was Guardy. I was just goofing around with it, and I accidentally won some locals. But then I played Miraidon. I played Terrabox. I played Joltik Box. I played. I said Miraidon.
You're forgetting the best one, man. The Cloth Tropicos. You're telling me you played that.
Yes, the Cloth Tropicos. So substantially different decks in terms of energy acceleration, Pokemon acceleration, it just functionality. Like their goal, like Terrabox was very much like a take 2, whereas Cloth Tropicos was like a try and donk your opponent before they get going. So it just, I had to put a lot more effort into what deck actually could work because it kept changing every 2 or 3 months. Like the previous deck just stopped working for me. Last year it was just like hop on a deck and just ride it for 7 months. This year was like in fact, some decks were like 1 month, and I was like, all right, this deck's cooked. In the case of Tropicos, where I picked it up right before UIC and then wrote it to rotation, which was like 2 months later or like a month later. So it was a lot more work this year. And I didn't have like 1 or 2 events that just got me like 50% of my invite. It was a lot of 100 here, 120 here, 80 here, 160. It was just little incremental bits here, but over the course of the season, it got me to the finish line.
And then the last kind of competitiveness, and we'll go into kind of the other parts of managing the game, right? Is you said it was a lot of retooling and adapting and just reassessing month over month, event over event. What were kind of the keys that you're looking for when you were assessing the meta analysis, the meta field, and then how you were interacting or feeling with a deck going into each one of these tournaments? Because it sounds like pretty much every month you were looking at like 5 or 6 decks on your kitchen table, being like, which one is the best one for me?
So 2 things generally. I need a fast deck because I am not a fast player inherently. I'd say I'm average, maybe slightly slower than average, but around the 50 percentile. But in today's best of 3 format, I don't think that is a sufficient speed if you want to guarantee you can get 3 games in, especially when you just don't know what your opponent is. Like your opponent could be fast or your opponent could be slow. And I don't want to just give up the ability to finish a 3-game set if my opponent is also average. So I need a deck that can actually get a 3-game set in with a reasonable amount of success. The other thing is I like some gimmick that I can abuse to give me an upper hand. So Iron Hands being able to cheat prize trades, Cloth in the poison package being able to donk your opponent before they even get to take a turn, Wellspring being able to knock out 2 things at once, any kind of gimmick in that regards where you're not just taking 1 KO at a time or 1 prize at a time. You're being able to manipulate the prize trade in your advantage, or in some cases just winning outright before they even get to do anything. It's, I guess, from their perspective, unfun or unfair, but it's, at the end of the day, it's a competition. We're trying to win. And if I can play a card that just says you win faster, that seems good, especially when I'm trying to go faster so I can actually get a 3rd game in if I get stuck with a unideal opening hand in games 1 or games 2. Being able to just cheat a turn or cheat a prize or cheat a KO means the game will end faster, which means I can squeeze more games into a round. So it's strategic in the sense of I want to play more games because then I will tie less. and I've played the decks that tie, and it's just not for me.
Makes sense.
Gotcha. Well, obviously you have the mind, you have the analytics for this game, but the one thing we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast was you're not a professional Pokemon player. Even though you talk like one, you act like one, you got the results like one, you actually have a full-time job. So with working full-time and the commitments and responsibilities of what that brings, what are some like challenges or struggles of working full-time but being on the competitive grind?
Oh, absolutely. So if anybody that doesn't know, I'm an engineer for Ford. I'm very fortunate, and the manager I have is flexible with my paid time off. He has a family, and his kids do sports, so he kind of understands the competitive grind that you can be in. Like he has other people on his team that do like travel leagues, so like he's very familiar with kind of like a competitive season since his kids are in it, his coworkers' kids are in it. So like I'm very blessed in that regards, where like I don't have like someone that's going to give me a hard time when I want to take time off. He also understands that like I don't know what next season's schedule is until it's announced. So like Ford generally has a policy where they want you to get as much pay time off requests in at the beginning of the season. Well, let me rephrase, the beginning of the year, so that they can kind of anticipate coverages and stuff. Uh, I'm in launch, so I don't have a production team that I'm required to support. However, I do as a ergonomist, and I have a number of departments that I provide some intellectual support to, but I don't have to support day-to-day production. So that kind of also offers me some additional flexibility that, say, a process engineer or controls engineer wouldn't have. Is unless somebody gets hurt or there's a concern about potentially somebody getting hurt, I don't have to go down and fix things on the floor. Um, but being on launch, I will have particular pushes for deadlines where I might not get to play a lot a certain week just because I have a major capacity analysis that I have to complete, or I have a line review that I have to finish, or I have a line side workstation assessment that I have to prep for. Certain things that are arbitrarily scheduled for work, but like in the bigger picture, it makes sense why it's scheduled as such. So those will limit some of my time availability. And it happens. Like there's a number of events this year. I mentioned I went to 39 cups and challenges. There was at least a dozen that I wanted to go to, and I just couldn't go to because I didn't have the sufficient practice that it felt like it was going to be a waste of time. Or I'd rather punt on an event and practice for the next one because I hadn't been able to practice that week because I had some work thing that was happening. So it just, you got to pick and choose your battles. And I'd rather go to 2 cups in a month and do well at those than 4 cups in a month and don't do very well at any of them because I'm not practicing enough. And sometimes, I can practice. I have the time, 2-3 hours a night, 4 to 6 nights a week. But sometimes I have to stay late at work, and that's not. I get home and I'm gassed, and I'm just not 100%, and I'm not gonna gain anything from that practice. Or I'm stubborn, so I'll try and stick it out, and then I'm terrible, and I'm like, all right, well, I learned nothing from this hour and a half session. So you can try, but if you're not mentally prepared and you don't have a like a set number of objectives for your practice session, um, you may not get as much out of that as you would hope you would. And at the end of the day, you want to optimize your practice so that you're actually learning things that are good, things that are bad, things that work, things that don't work. Uh, you know, so you can sufficiently optimize your deck before you go into a tournament. Because there are only so many weeks in a month, and you you run out of time if you don't do it correctly. The one of the positives of the job is it does pay me with a sufficient amount of income that I can do all of these tournaments. Like I know a number of my friends, and it is what it is. But they are financially limited to the number of tournaments that they attend, and some of the ones I go to are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. Part of it is it's a vacation for me. Like I'll go compete in a Pokemon tournament, but then I'm also gonna go to the Great Barrier Reef, or like I'll go compete, but then also go to like a zoo or whatever happens to be nearby. Whatever the locale is that is the touristy thing to see. I'll go do those touristy things, but then it is a kind of a business trip where like, all right, let's focus in and let's knock this out of the ballpark. But Ford does pay me a substantial amount of money that allows me to not have to worry about funds. Like I pay my debts, pay for food, and then pay to travel to go to these things. And that's not necessarily the case for everybody. So, I put the hours in, I put the college in, and now I have money to go play a children's card game.
So, actually, I was going to continue on that financial
Sure.
conversation. You said earlier that personally you're more of a frugal, kind of a pinch penny kind of person. So, what are kind of the tips, tricks, and things that you maximize to get the most out of these trips?
Sure. So, I don't buy a deck unless I know that I want to play it. Like I have so many proxies that I've printed. Like step one, build the deck in live, you know, basic feasibility. Like, is this deck even something that I like playing? Like, do I think it's gonna work? If I do, then I'll build it on live. If it works on live, then I'll make proxies and take it to locals and actually start grinding out like sets. Because you can get just a general smattering of games in on live, but there's no rhyme or reason. Like you can play meta stuff, you can play random nonsense. It's a hodgepodge of what you're gonna see. If you could take it to locals and you can like say, hey, buddy, can you play this deck? And like, I have enough people that are good at a wide enough spread of decks that I can pick a buddy and say, hey, you're good at this deck. I want to just crunch out like 9 games of this. And like by the end of that, I'll get a feel this does or doesn't win against whatever the decks are that I think are going to be relevant in the meta. And if it doesn't have enough even or favorable matchups, the deck's just not going to work. Um, so, uh, very frugal with cards. I don't fly first class. Like I keep it relatively cheap. Um, I go on trips with people because you can share travel expenses, you can share hotels. Like I'm not gonna go eat at any like Michelin star restaurants. Like I'm generally pretty conservative with like the finances of the trip. In fact, 90% of the time, by far and away, the largest expense is the airfare. And there's not much you can do about that. It's just it costs money to fly to other continents. But like the other details, um, if I can cut corners, I try to cut corners. And not safety related things like I don't want to go somewhere where I'm gonna get mugged, but like ways I can, if I can plan food accordingly, like a lot of times the food at the venue is like super expensive, but if there's a convenient way for me to like buy food ahead of time and then have the food, plus you also don't have to worry about waiting in line in between rounds. If you can like bring food, then you just have food available. Or if your hotel is close enough to the convention center, you just go back, grab your food at the hotel, and you're good. So little things like that, like you save time from having to wait in line, and you save money because you just have the food purchased. For me specifically, I don't like to eat in between rounds because my brain turns off, and then I lose the rounds after lunch. So I just eat a bunch of food in the morning, and then I just play all my 9 rounds or 8 rounds, and then I eat when we're done. That's something I learned over the course of a number of failed attempts. Where I think the best example, Peoria 2 seasons ago, the one that I was the last one I missed my invite. I started at 3-0, lunch break, ate food, and all 3 wins were 2-0 wins. And then after lunch, I lost all 4 games before I dropped, and they were all 0-2 losses. So it's like, well, never lost a game, ate food, never won a game. So that was kind of all right, we're not going to do this anymore. And the I think the nail in the coffin was at EUIC last year. I didn't eat. I think that was the first one where I'm like, because I just wasn't really that hungry, and I was like really like hyper focused in, and I didn't eat. I went 7-1-1 day one. I'm like, all right, we're never eating again, and it's worked out. So like that's for me. I know some people like they're diabetic and they can't really, but like for me, if you don't eat, first off, if you don't eat, that's money that you're saving because the convention center food is ridiculously expensive. But also, I just food stuff doesn't work well with my brain, so I eat a bunch in the morning and then I just ride it through the whole day. But yeah, the airfare is very expensive. Even if you go cheap, it's still expensive. Like I can fly Spirit and it's still gonna cost. Although I don't go outside of this country with Spirit. Like Air Canada's been good. Turkish Airlines was good. Um, but yeah, just whatever makes sense. Americans actually been kind of iffy. Like they've been hit or miss and a lot of misses. They're cheap, so that's kind of nice, but like they have a lot of issues. Um, but anyways, I digress. Yeah, I try to be as frugal as possible without cutting out events. I think the best way to describe it is it's an empty mansion. I go to the places I want to, but there's not a whole lot of content, and like some people can like really dress it up and like go places, and it's like, hey, I got the house, we're good. I don't need a whole bunch of stuff in the house. I'm at the event that I want to go to.
You're the meme when a guy gets a new apartment or new house and they just make a sofa out of the styrofoam from the TV and hang the TV up. Just the bare
Yes,
minimum.
got the
That's all I
TV
need.
on the cardboard box it came in.
Yep. And I know I can attest to some of the things that Solomon's talked about because I've gone with you to several events too, and we try and find ways where like we purchase food ahead of time. We try to do Airbnbs versus hotels because some Airbnbs can be cheaper, especially if you're rooming with people, and then you can cook your food. You can spend less money by going to grocery stores, and that's some tips that I've done in the past. And really, those trips I've done the best at tournaments. So, but I know sometimes we have to get hotels, and but we make the best of it. And like you said, going with people you know, like you share a hotel room, you're splitting it four ways. One, you're going to have fun and make memories with your friends, and two, you're cutting costs when you can. So a lot of it's yes practicality, but there is a bit of like memory making, like sharing the
Mm-hmm.
experience with a group of friends as well while we do this. I'm glad we're past the people sleeping in their cars because I've heard about that at like
Guilty,
pre-COVID.
guilty. That was me. I've done that.
So I'm
I
glad we grew up and actually stayed in a bed. So
I
Yes.
remember driving at 2 a.m. to and from. Like I remember driving, leaving my house when I lived in Georgia, and driving to Athens, and we left at like 2:33 a.m. just so we can get check in. And one of my buddies was in a winning in, so we had to stay. And this is when tournaments didn't end until 1 a.m. And then having to drive back that night, and then waking up and driving him back for day two, and it was just the craziest and also the spookiest thing in the world. Where you're driving down a dirt road in the middle of the night, like you swear you're either gonna get picked up by aliens or you're gonna be part of a Stephen King novel. Like those type of days, like I do recommend getting a hotel in the city that you're competing in instead of doing those 3 hour drives. It may sound like a good idea because you want to save money, but sometimes that opportunity cost is definitely worth it.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess just to summarize from like a time and money perspective, like during season, like when I have, it's the 2 to 4 weeks preceding a major tournament, it's exclusively I'm either thinking about work or I'm thinking about Pokemon, and there's not a whole lot else going on. Just because like I at the moment, and I don't see this changing, but who knows? I don't, I'm not on some super team with like the Bradners or the Chows or the Hedricks or the Azules of the world. Like it's, it's kind of a ragtag group of buddies. So like I don't have this huge think tank of people feeding me intel. So this is, I get little bits and pieces from, my group, and then I'll get bits and pieces from like international results, and then a lot of it's just me trying to piece together these little bits and pieces of data. what makes sense for me individually. So there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of, all right, I think this card will be a good inclusion. Play a couple dozen games. Nope, this card didn't do anything in any of those games. A lot of note keeping. I have a spreadsheet that has probably 2 dozen tabs, everywhere from deck list ideas, testing data, result data, metadata, all that stuff, just to document what's good, what doesn't work, uh, trends, so I can generate my own matchup data. Because Limitless is good to an extent, but there's also a lot of bad players on Limitless, and some of those results don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I agree with probably 75% of it, but 25% of it is like, yeah, it's just wrong. People just don't know how to pilot the deck. So being able to generate that myself and say, all right, I trust this data because it's my data, and either it works or it doesn't work, and I can validate it. So yeah, during the build up to a major event, like those 2 to 4 weeks beforehand, it's work and Pokemon and sleep, and not a whole lot else. And like, maybe I'll have to like mow the lawn or like repair a sink if it breaks in the house. But like, outside of like the onesie twosie stuff, there's not a whole lot else going on. So like, if you like a diverse, like, life experience, uh I don't know. Not if you're trying to get a grind for an invite. During the off season, which is right now, you can tackle all that stuff. Or like, there was 1 or 2 months during the season where like it was just kind of there wasn't a whole lot going on. So that was kind of like a mini vacation where like I took 3 weeks off, and like I think I played maybe a dozen games the entire 3 week period. So like, you get your little mini vacations, but like, by and large, for that 10-month season from September to June, it's 75%. You're just work and then Pokemon and sleep, repeat. But at the end of the day, like, what's your goals in life? And this is something I want to do right now. And so it's worth the time. It's worth the money, which if anybody wants to know, I tried to guesstimate, and I'd say, all of a sudden, keep in mind, we attended all the continents. So if you trying to keep it a little more financial, you probably go to Mexico and Puerto Rico, and that'll cut 50% of the cost of the season. But it was around, give or take, $1,000. It was about 16,000 for this year. So now some people can take, a family of whatever to some week-long vacation in Europe, and boom, there's 16,000 right there. So comparatively, that's not that much. But like, to people that aren't as financial, that's a pretty big pill to swallow. But that's for a price tag. That's about how much I spent this year. Last year, not quite as much. I think it was around 12,000, but and it was also nice because like a large percentage of that was covered by winnings, which I didn't quite get there this year. I was winning into money at like 4 events, and I lost all 4 of them, so that was rough. Like, one more win at 4 different events, and I had the whole season paid. But you win some, you lose some, and I lost the ones that I needed to get for money. But we got the invite, which is objective 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
cool.
about how much a season cost for me, going to all of the continents.
And I'm sure there's plenty of players that can do their version of a grind. I mean, we talk about North American players, right? There's enough regionals in the United States and Canada where if you just want to go coast to coast, you can probably make it and qualify and get your world qualification without leaving North America. Like, you could go to Toronto and Vancouver regionals and the rest of the US, maybe Puerto Rico, like you said, and do the same and accomplish the same things by maybe not seeing the world. But that was a goal you wanted. You wanted to turn some of these trips into memory makers. And so you saw London, you saw Johannesburg, you saw Brisbane. So you were able to see some really nice places and take advantage of it and use Pokemon as your vehicle for those experiences.
Absolutely. Like, it's all about objectives. Like, my objective was see the world and use Pokemon as that vessel. If your objective doesn't include that, you're just like, get the world's invite and be a little more frugal. Like my buddy Carter, he spent a summer abroad, like study for his senior year. So like, he only competed effectively half of the season, and all of his competitions were in the U.S. and like he got his invite. He's just snuck in. I think he's like 710 points, but doesn't matter if you get 700 or 1700. An invite's an invite, and he got there. So he's a perfect example of somebody like grinded the North America events, and he got the invite.
So speaking of making it to the tournament, right? You did all this work to get it into the tournament. The old adage is you never know until you get there kind of deal. What is
Mhm.
your, you said this is about the time where you start planning and thinking and really kind of digesting information for that crown. What are you looking at right now? Where are you in that testing? What decks are you thinking about? What mindset are you at
Mhm.
this point getting ready for that tournament?
So, um, Joltik box immediately. That's the one I took to NAIC. I don't think that the meta changes too drastically between NAIC and Worlds. So that's like an immediate, like, I'm already playing the deck. I already have, familiarity with the deck. There's a couple things that are going to change. Like everyone throws away their boards and they pull out air balloons from 2022 or whenever that card was legal. So that's like the first one on the list. I'm surprised how few decks play Shaman. So Terrabox is a reasonable consideration just because the only decks that play Watchtower are Garchomp, which is like 1% of the meta, and a couple Dragapult lists that don't play Artisan are playing the Watchtower just for the Raging Bolt. But with Raging Bolt switching to a more turbo build, the Watchtower is going to get less value. So I think a lot of those decks are going to drop those for maybe Jamming Towers or some other form of disruption. So I think with less Noctowl Raging Bolt, it makes Terrabox actually better. And then I haven't ran the numbers yet. That's something actually I still need to do this week. But it feels like only 50% of Guardies are gonna play the Shaman. And a lot of the Grim players that I know are saying that Grim's actually or the Shaman's terrible in the mirror because they just double monkey and it's dead from Frostless Pings. So like the Shaman isn't even good in the mirror matchup per their opinion. Have played 0 games of Grim, so just because it's too slow of a deck, and it just Monkey's not my playstyle. I need something that's much more like kill you in 2 turns, not like I'm gonna ping you to death with 1,000 Grim needles. So, but per their opinion, the Shaman's not even that great. So if more people, more Grims cut Shaman, Dragapult is already not really playing Shaman largely. So it's just that opens the Terra box idea. Maybe that is relevant again because what's better than KOing 1 Pokemon and taking 2 prizes is KOing 2 Pokemon and taking 2 prizes. Um, and then the new deck, the new kid on the block, that's it's old is new again, is Miraidon, and I've played a little bit of that, but I need to get some more games in. Like I said earlier, this month has largely been kind of vacation for me. But as we're approaching Worlds, I think what we're like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out.
About, yeah.
I need to start paying a little bit more attention and actually warming the engines up and getting back into the groove of things. I went to a couple tournaments this week and absolutely got my butt kicked. So lessons learned. I can't just coast. Like I gotta respect the competition, respect the game, and there's no time like the present. So I'd say Miraidon's the one that I'm most interested in, just because I don't have as much familiarity with it. Definitely not this build of the deck. But yeah, that's kind of the 3 leading candidates, and there's some other stuff like Poison Moon's an idea, Poison Arch is an idea, but those are the big 3 that I'm considering.
So you mentioned the build. Like I have the list. You gave us the list right before we started talking today, and we
Yes.
were going over it. And the first question I had for you was, it has the new electric that has the dynamotor, and you're running a 3-3 line of that ability in this list. And my gut reaction to you was, this seems a little thick. And you go, yeah, but that's intentional. Can you go into maybe a little bit on why you would like that type of line, that 3-3 line versus maybe a little skinnier of a 2-2?
Sure. So, uh, first we'll talk about what it's not, and then we'll talk about what it is.
Sure.
So, I don't like Magneton just generally as a card. I think for Dusknoir it works because I lose a prize, but you lose a prize. Like I'm taking a KO strategically on something on your board, let's say a monkey, or you're only a basic that's going to evolve into your attacker. Like it's putting you off your ability to actually be aggressive. So I can give up a prize because I'm hurting you offensively. Magneton doesn't do that. Like you receive no negative impact from the Magneton. It just enables me to take a KO. But at the expense of now you have to take one prize less. It's not a 1-to-1 trade. So I don't think it's functionally good as a card. It also gives you no wiggle room for if you have slightly unoptimal start or you just lose a coin flip. Like that's the other thing is if you're down one prize because your opponent got to take the first KO, Magneton doesn't allow you to like now you're down a whole two prize turn. Or if they take a two prize KO, well now you're just effectively at some point giving them another prize. So now you have to come back 3-0. So it's too much cost than it's actually you're gonna get value out of it. That's my opinion. Obviously, players that are probably better than me would disagree with that, but I've played the card and I've largely found that it hurts you more often than it helps you. I much like single prize options where it's like I lost the first two prize initiative. I'm gonna spam you with a bunch of single prizers, and if you don't boss every turn, then at some point you're gonna be forced to take a single prizer, and now I have the advantage because now I'm still on that two prize grind. So electric allows you to have a more robust board state built up. Um, I think 2-2 is the correct counts, and I don't want to prize my electrics. So that's where the 3-3 comes in. I don't think 1-1's enough. Like getting a one electric on board, I don't think is a sufficient count. I think you're going to want the 2-2, especially in this version where I have the Zero Aura that does the 210. I also threw in a Zapdos, and I got the Night Stretcher, so I could theoretically pull off three single prize attackers in a game. And with that level of single prize usage, you're going to run out of generators if that's your only energy acceleration. Or they all take 3 energy. So cool, you get one attachment. If you have one electric on the board, then there's one. Now you're praying for your generator to hit the third energy. If you get 2 electrics on board, it's just attach 2 electrics and I'm good. So like I always want the double electric on the board, and prizing can be a son of a gun. So the 3-3 just guarantees even if I prize a basic and a evolution, or if I prize two basics or evolutions, I'm gonna have one. Like if I prize 2 Tynamos and I'm only playing a 2-2 line, we're cooked. Like we have no energy acceleration where we're working with. If I prize 2 and a 3-3, I at least got one. Like there is a guy, or I can have 2 electrics in hand, squawk them, and I still have one to work with in the deck. Plus, I have the Night Stretcher to get a second one back. So it offers me some flexibility in like oh crap situations. Um, the other thing is I am particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Suspect. Uh, um, I'm I the deck scares me that it doesn't have Force Seal Stone. Like that card was such a emergency get out of jail free card, pre-rotation where it's like I can Arven for something, I can Force Seal Stone, stash it on the bench, squawk, and if I don't get the thing I need off of the squawk, I just Force Seal Stone for whatever the other card was. That's why Peonydown was so great because it's just grab 2 things and then you squawk and you have a whole hand, and it's like I get the 2 items off of Arven plus 4 Sealstone. We don't have that right now. Like that doesn't exist. I get the Arven, so I get the one item thing I want, but I don't have the other thing. And the tools right now aren't that super. Like we got retreat and we got HP that can get nullified by the wrench or the tower. And we got a little bit of damage bump if we do have to go first, so that my opponent takes the turn 1 KO. Like I can go 30 damage output better, but like we don't have like super utility in tools like Forest Sealstone offered, so that does concern me. Is like, can we be as aggressive as we used to be with Miraidon pre-rotation? And my thinking is, if not, like I can Arven for TM evolution, throw up, let's say, a Tynamo, and then evolve two other Tynamo on the bench. Now I have a single Predator in the active, and I have two Tynamos. And with the energy and the Ultra Balls, hopefully you're burning energy turn 1 to get those guys out, and then boom, you're rocking and rolling. Turn 2. If they take a prize in the active, that's a single prizer. That's a win. Like that's a super win. And then I can take two prizes on turn 2. If they somehow, let's say, gust up the Miraidon that got the stuff out, or they amped the guy in the active, I have options through the Zapdos plus the Defiance Band, or the Zeraora if they're dumb enough to put down a Latias or a Fezandipiti. I can take my two prizes off the bench. Um, and Shaman doesn't stop that, so that's kind of nice. The downside to Zeraora, and this is kind of thinking, strategically, I still think that Bolt's the best second format. Well, technically Guardy, but Guardy is really hard to play. So Bolt is the best deck in format for people that aren't Guardy brain. Um, and Bolt can just simply not put down any two prizers on the bench besides um, uh, Bolt and Teal Mask. So the neither of those can die to Zeraora because the Defiance Band doesn't work on the bench. It only works on the active, and Zeraora can only do 210 to a bench, which Teal Mask is protected because it's a Terra. So if they don't put a two prize liability like Squawk or Mew or Latias or Fez, Zeraora ain't doing nothing. And I think that's what a lot of good Bolt players are going to do. Is they're just going to get their their owls and their teal masks and their babies and their bolts and be like, all right, what are you gonna do? Zeraora can't do anything. Zapdos gives you some flexibility where it's like, all right, you're not putting the stuff out. Well, I'll just kill it anyways with Zapdos. So that's a card that I've seen nobody talk about. And I think there's some very useful, relevant versatility with the card. I was also the guy that took Thunderous to 3-day 2s, and nobody else played that card. So maybe in my opinion means nothing, but I think there's some value in the card that is not being talked about. The Zekrom has actually been a little underwhelming, to be honest. Like it's a last turn KO card, but like you also already had that in Blood Moon, so like it just felt really underwhelming. Like it does jack squat like turn 1, turn 2, and it's really not doing a whole lot even turn 3. Like turn 4, turn 5 is when it finally gets going. But I think at that point you're already going to have blown all your generators, so that's where you need that 2 electric bench setup where you can just Miraidon out the Zekrom, attach double electric, and you're rocking and rolling. Otherwise, like your generators are gone, and like they're gonna Iona you. Like that's how the game works. Is like, oh, you're down to 1 or 2 prizes remaining, Iono, and then take a KO, and it's like you're not gonna have that Arven for generator and whatever else you need. Like you'll have an Arven for something, or you'll need the boss because you've blown your Prime Catcher turn like 2. So I don't think there's enough resources to guarantee you having everything if you don't just have a perpetual energy generation machine on the bench. And Miraidon takes 2, Miraidon takes 3 energy, Zekrom takes 3 energy, Hands takes 4 energy. Like everything's so energy expensive. All your single prize attackers are 3 energy. You want to guarantee the double electric. So that's the thinking behind it. Is like you can burn a Tynamo and not feel bad. You can throw away 1 or 2 electrics off a Squawk, and it's like, well, I still got another one. So it's just you're not hard pressed. So like I only have 2, and I got to make them work.
Makes sense. No, and that's where I was looking at it. I guess I play more of a riskier play style, where if I would I would have thinned that 3-3 down to a 2-2. Be like, all right, I'm just gonna go in the law of averages. How many times am I going to have both my electrics and both my Tynamos prize, and I'm SOL, and kind of play a little more risk and play a little more loose, and that's just my play style. But I'm also not competitive grinding. I also got more of a loose player now, and where I'm at as a player, so I get it. But the way you explain the 60 cards, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm not even close to even thinking how to play decks like this anymore. Like the level of insight of where you just talked about this. I know this is not even a fully optimized list. And just
Mm-hmm.
what you're thinking, the value of every 60, it is absolutely mesmerizing hearing players at your level and higher just talk about deck building. It is astounding the insight in what you're looking at every single card. Even the 61st, 62nd, and 63rd cards are sitting on the side and like kind of like your pseudo sideboard. You're like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
everything is audition. Nothing ever has a solid start. Something can always be optimized and changed, and it's a next level kind of stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm. That was one of the things that I had to click into this mode to actually get to kind of where I am now. Is especially in casual play, you'll hear a lot of people, "I lost because I dead drew," and it's like, unless you're dead drawing from turn one, you most likely made a mistake somewhere that caused you to have an unoptimized deck or an unoptimized board state. And until you can identify those mistakes, you're never going to get out of that. You're always going to be the guy that's, well, I lost because I dead drew. Like, oh, I didn't, my opponent Ioned me and I didn't get the cards I need. It's like, why is your board not built to the point where you can just survive hand disruption? Because, like, if you watch the streams, all the best players, it's like they get Ion, it's like it does nothing. Like, they have the cards they need anyways. And part of that is because they're putting the bad cards in the bottom of the deck, or they're discarding the bad cards, and all the good cards stay in the deck. Like the best place for your cards that you want to win the game are in the deck. You don't want them in the hand because they're going to go in the bottom of the deck. You don't want them like in the you want them in the deck, and you want the deck as small as possible, because then when you get an Ionode, now they're in your hand. Even if they don't Iono you, you can Fez into those cards. So like that's the best place to put the best cards, is in your deck at the end of the game. And a lot of people think I want my cards in my hand, but you never get to play those cards. If you don't play them on the turn you have them, you're not going to get to play those cards. It's just, it is what it is. That's the format we're in right now. So, yeah, and it took me some time to like start really self-assessing. Why am I losing games? And like, this past weekend I went to a cup and a challenge, and like every loss I was able to pinpoint, all right, I made this decision, and this decision was wrong because it caused ABC, and ABC made me lose the game. And if I didn't do this, if I did this other thing, then ABC wouldn't have happened because I would have been in a better board state, or my deck would have been thinner, or my hand would have been different, or any litany of reasons. But like, I was able to pinpoint, I lost these games because I did wrong things. And a lot of people don't complete that self-assessment. They just throw their hand up and say, well, it's out of my control. Well, if it's out of your control, pick a different deck. Like, you should not be losing games because your deck just is bad. You should be losing games because you made a strategic error, and then you realize what that strategic error is, so you don't do it again. And so it's a mindset thing. Once you get to that point where it's like, all right, why did I lose? And you can like learn from that, then you can actually start, taking the next step. But it just, a lot of people get stuck in perpetual victim mode. Oh, my deck caused me to lose. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes you like, your starting hand is like Ursaluna and 7 garbage cards. And it's like, well, yeah, I just lose this game. But that's not the majority. The majority of the game is I have something to work with. And how do I make this, a winning board state out of this something?
Yeah, good decks are good for a reason. It's always the pilot has to take responsibility and accountability at times.
Mm-hmm. Yep, meta decks are meta, and now you just got to figure out, how do I play this, and how do I set my board state up consistently, because other people are doing it, so why not me? And certain decks work for certain people. Like, there's definitely decks I've played where it's like, yeah, this just ain't me. Like, it's a good deck, it'll win, it's just not me, for one reason or another. I mean, Guardy's the best example. I love to play Guardy, but I can't play it in a best of 3 because I'm too slow. But like there's other decks not time related where it's like I can recognize it's a good deck, but it's just not my playstyle. Anything with Monkey, not my playstyle. Monkey's a great card. It might be the best card in format right now. I think Hands is good, Fez is good. There's a lot of good cards. It's definitely top 5 in format, undisputed, but it's not my playstyle. It's way too technical. I need a much more direct brute force style. But like if you're a Monkey player, if you can see those lines of like if I put the damage here, here, and here, then I can move it and like more power to you. But like you just got to pick something like that's good, has good matchup spread. You can pilot it well, and then identify when you make mistakes so that you can learn from them.
I think that's really great advice because you really not necessarily gave a vague thing, but it's more of like the concepts and the principles that you talked about apply to every single deck. Yes, meta is meta for a reason, but as a podcast that focus on how can we play rogue decks that are into the competitive scene, like we can take these principles as like, okay, how can I use my strategy and not necessarily blame my deck, but like learn from my mistakes, especially in a competitive setting like a cup or a challenge, I'm more on the local level, and like take this sound advice that you just gave us and our listeners and help us become better players. And it's not just like, oh, this only works in the meta. I can only play Raging Ball. This only applies to if I play Guardy. It's like, no, this applies to any deck you play, as long as you know how to pilot it well and you know your matchup spread really, really well. Yes, as you mentioned, sometimes you'll have not the greatest hands. That's variability. That's part of playing this game. But like you said, for most time, you can get out of situations if you know your lines and if you know the matchup spread well enough.
And I think whether you're playing a homebrew or a tier 1 deck, there is value in playing cards that your opponent's not expecting, because they won't have game planned for it. And then, ta-da, this card that just is not meta, and they in some cases won't have an answer for the card. In other cases, the shock of the card being played will throw them off their game. And I've seen, like, as mentioned, I've day 2'd 3 times with OBF Thunderous, and I've had games where I play the card down, they read the card, you see their face like try to think, and then just lose the game right there. Like that card has gotten in their head of they don't have a line of how to play the game now that this card has entered the board, and they just lose through not having a game plan. It's something that they just aren't expecting, and there's a litany of cards that can kind of fulfill that role. But having those 1 to 5 cards in a deck where it's regardless what the deck is. Now, you're those 1 to 5 cards could be the primary attacker in the case of a rogue deck, but even if it isn't, is just having the unexpected card where it's like boom, wild card, and your opponent's like, well, I don't know what to do now, and now they're not going off of prepared lines like in chess terminology. Now they're just playing the game, and it comes down to who's better at playing the game, you or them. Because there's no like if they do A, then I do B. If they do C, I do D. It's just I've never seen this before. What do I do? And because it's a card that you have practiced, you have lines. So you have a strategic advantage of this random card that I have practiced, but you haven't practiced. I know how to play it. You don't know how to play against it. Therefore, I'm into the advantage. So even if it's an unfavorable matchup, like for example, at NAIC, I was playing Joltik Box. I played 2 Raging Bolts, and on paper, that's a terrible matchup. But I was playing Genesect, Counter Catcher, and Defiance Band, and in my opinion, those 3 cards auto the matchup. And I never lost a set against Raging Bolt because if I get the Genesect down, I just win. And even if I don't get the Genesect down, as long as the Defiance and Counter Catcher aren't prized, I can just Galvantula them until they miss a boss. So then I win, because they're always going to turn to Prime Catcher. So they won't have the Prime Catcher. They have to boss at that point. And therefore, single prizer taking 2 prize KOs every turn. If they ever whiff boss, game over. So having lines that I've practiced for hours that my opponent has not practiced, they don't know what to do. They lose the game. So, and that goes into both meta decks like Jolter Box or non-meta decks, which, whatever tickles your fancy. If you've practiced the matchup and your opponent hasn't practiced it, I've lost, to a Palafin because the guy knew what he was doing. I hadn't played a Palafin match in months. And then I go on and win every single match afterwards. Palafin was like the only game I lost the entire cup, but I just didn't know what to do. Like I had not practiced the lines. I did not know the strategy, and he got me. And then like afterwards I see Dragapults and Guardies and Bolts, and it's like, oh, I know this is all meta. I know what I'm doing. So I can just cream those. But the Palafin caught me because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what the correct lines were, and he took me to school.
So that's good transition.
Yeah, that's why we enjoy those type of decks.
I'd say you're talking to probably two of the people that look into. I would say probably only person that probably looks into weird deck builds more than probably me and Dean are probably it's like LDF and some of those content creators that's their calling card, right? And those are always I always enjoyed it. I mean, I've always played off meta, mostly because of budget for me when I was a competitive player. But I know Dean is working on. And it'll be a good transition point here of the Rogue deck of the week with a deck from Black Bolt that Dean's been working on and kind of playing around with. And before, while we were getting set up, he's like, yeah, I was playing testing this deck. And he goes like, I forgot Charizard was a darkness type. I'll go, what? Because he's like, fire energy. Yeah. I just saw fire energy, so I thought I was screwed.
Yeah, so... as we transition to this week's Road Deck of the Week, this is our first of the black-white set, and I decided to focus on Amoonguss. So this was a card that we talked about in our preview, so go ahead and you can watch that video. But it is a Stage 1 Grass-type Pokemon with, mainly I focus on the first attack for the colors, energy, and I can't remember what the name of the attack is. I don't have the card in front of me. Yeah, I'm prepared. Yay. But it does 30 damage.
Dangerous reaction.
That's what I was thinking that. Dangerous reaction. So for a colorless, it does 30 damage plus, and if your opponent has any special condition, it does 120 more. So in this deck, I am focusing on the poison package. Partly one, that's something I'm comfortable with. And two, I thought it was fitting because last time Solomon was on on our podcast, you actually introduced Poison Arch, and now it actually became a meta deck for a little while since you kind of talked about it. But I thought it was just fitting to kind of bring back Poison with this Rogue deck.
And,
so,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then the 150, and then you have other damage modifiers in this deck too, right?
I do, yes. So the big damage modifier is actually the Lilligant from Journey together with the Sunny Day ability, where your grass and fire type Pokemon, so in this case just grass type Pokemon, do 20 extra damage. And this actually got me a little bit because I also play Badoo in here, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn 1 Badoo item lock, slow down my opponent since my board state isn't the best. And I went to do the attack. I'm like, wait, why am I hitting for 50? And I realized I had 2 Lilligants in play, so the ability stacks. So you can item lock for 50 damage versus the 10. So the Lilligant from Journey Gala is one of the damage modifiers. And another damage modifier we have is the Binding Mochi, since we do play the Brew Bonnet with the Toxic Powder ability. So we've talked about Toxic Powder numerous times on this podcast, so everyone is familiar with the Brew Bonnet. So that's pretty much the deck. I do play one of the Baby Petrons, just because we are focusing with the Poison package. It can give us a nice either Donk ability, or you can take KOs with the Poison and prevent your opponent from using Fezandipiti, since that is in almost every single deck, including ours. I do play one multi-prize Pokemon, and it is the Fezandipiti just for the draw. So other notable cards in this list, obviously we played the Ancient Booster Capsules with the Brute Bonnet. I actually play 2 Lana's Aids. I think Lana Aid is such a very important card in any single prize deck. It helps you get the cards you're missing, and this is such a low to the ground setup deck since you only need 1 energy to attack. You're attacking with stage 1. As long as you're sequencing your setup right, Lana Aid is so powerful when you need it at the right time. And the ace spec of choice that I picked was the Secret Box. I went back and forth between that and Hyper Aroma, but through my playtesting, I felt like I just needed certain cards at any given time. I wasn't having difficulty setting up my board with the evolutions. So the Secret Box is so broken right now. It gets you basically one of any trainer card. Yes, you're discarding, but you play a lot of recursion cards. So you can discard stuff that you can just get back again. So to me, it's not really that negatively impacting your board state or your hand. You're just finding ways to really try to get recycle your resources for the future turns. So it's fairly straightforward. You attack with an Amoonguss. You're doing 150 and 170. And right now, hitting as a grass attacker can be very beneficial with a lot of the darkness Pokemon out there. As we mentioned, I was playing Charizard, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a very difficult matchup. And then I realized Charizard was weak to grass, and I went from, okay, this is going to be completely impossible to this is completely favorable. So having the grass typing is very beneficial with this format. And it's just you're making your opponent take 6 prizes unless they can get the Fez, but you're only playing the Fez when you need it.
Grim is also weak to grass. That's another.
That's right. Yeah. So that's another
huge
example, like it being beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a proponent the last couple weeks of grass is on the upswing because again, the weakness mechanic is such a game-changing mechanic in the game, where if you hit the right Pokemon for weakness, you just can go up those power rankings just purely because of your typing, not because of how strong you really are, just because you're hitting into the right matchups for weakness and swinging that favorability in your favor just for that mechanic alone.
Yeah. Clefairy is not a strong card in a vacuum, but like it's okay. But the fact that it's the only thing that hits dragons for weakness, and it effectively one hit KOs every dragon, like it's broken. Like it's top 10 card, but like it's only a top 10 card because its ability.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
and
to that point,
and the popularity of Dragapult and Raging Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Like if those decks weren't high level meta or very popular, then Clefairy wouldn't be as good because it wouldn't be hitting into as many matchups. So it's like you said, it's
correct.
It's not good in a vacuum, but it's good when you look at the environment that which it operates in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if its ability was like, let's say for fire and instead of dragon, like it wouldn't be that good because there's nothing fire running around that's like scary. But like the fact that like 2 of the top 5 decks are dragon decks, like that's relevant.
Yes.
So yeah, like this grass, Grim's huge, and Charizard's coming back. And it's always like I ran into actually I'd say with Zard Polt, it's not coming back. It's like a big deck. Yeah, and that's major relevant.
So yeah, it just shows that you can take these cards that no one was talking about and actually becoming very like I wouldn't say necessarily like, oh, you're gonna be a powerhouse, but it gives you a chance to really play the game and really have at least close matchups. I've done 2 games for the video already, and one of them, like I will say, I didn't win, but I held my own. It was close, and just the fact that a deck like this with Amoonguss, no one knows what this card does. I'm sure whenever I play this down, people are reading it, and I can hold my own in a ladder match. Like I'll take that. I'm still learning the deck myself. It's completely homebrew. I can't even find this deck anywhere. So this is something that I just created when I was bored this weekend. So I'm really excited to show you all my videos and my games with this. But again, thank you, Solomon, for hopping on in this week's episode. You gave us another masterclass on just really picking and developing your skills as a player. So thank you for that. Before we end the episode, is there any shout outs you want to give? Anyone you want to thank? The platform is yours, man.
Sure, absolutely. I guess once again, thanks for having me. I not all the time I get to do this, talk about the game on a setting such as this, so it is appreciated from my side. I guess shout out to I guess the testing group that I have, Team Sacred Fire, Poke Peeps, Team Draw Attach Pass. Um, a shout out to like the locales that we hang out at. So Pat Bro at Destiny Games, the Hyperion Games guys, Pando. Shout out to I guess Metro Detroit, the Michiganders that are playing the game, and yeah, it's fun. The community is great. Like I enjoy the card game, but also like the Pokemon community is a bunch of really cool, smart people. So it makes it easy to keep wanting to come back. Because I know that's not the case in every TCG or every just activity at large. So we're blessed to have a very intelligent and gracious community that actually like wants to grow and better each other. And there's a lot of good content available on the internet through videos or coaching to help new people become better. So that is really cool about this community.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. As a reminder, we are on the road to 100 subscribers. If you can, please like and subscribe this video on YouTube. Once we hit 100 subscribers, we're going to do our Rogue Deck Tournament of Champions, where we'll pick 8 decks that we've featured on our channel. And me and my friends will just do a fun little tournament and see which one will win for the day. But yeah, with all that being said, Devin, Solomon, do you have any final words or thoughts for our listeners and viewers?
Yes, tune in to Worlds, which is what's that, August 16th? Is that the date?
15th to the 18th, I think, is that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So the I have yet to make it to stream because don't have a YouTube channel, don't have a Twitter, so I'm not exactly a known name or face at the community at large. But one of these days, and maybe this Worlds will be it. But at any rate, there will be some very fun games, very good play. So I highly recommend tuning into Worlds August 15th for day one. And who knows, maybe you'll see yours truly on there.
Well, definitely. I know when Dean watches the streams, he points out your name so often. He goes, "Look, look!" I'm like, "Oh, cool!" Like, because I don't really watch. I can't have I have it on as background noise, but like I'll get Dean text me like, "Someone's doing good. Someone's doing good." I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool. Hopefully he gets picked." And you never know what tournament's going to be your night, and be able to showcase your skill and kind of be able just to have that moment. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, y'all. Well, thank you for listening. Keep an eye out for our Moongus video that will come out this Friday at noon. And all that being said, have fun playing those sneaky decks.
Bye, guys.